Hey everybody, it's Manicka and welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you the 20 positions that I've worked in my social work career. Yeah, you heard me right. I worked in 20 different positions. I want to share with you how I evolved from my early positions to where I am now, what that transition looked like, and then which positions paid me the most money. If you're interested in this topic, then please keep watching. I'm Manicka Thomas, the founder and clinical social worker at Kindred Connections Therapy Center. I've been a social worker for over 12 years. I decided to do an entire YouTube channel on my journey from cubicle working social worker to successful entrepreneur. Welcome to my channel. One of the reasons why I wanted to create this video is because last month I created a CEU course, Child Development 101, and it's available for CEU credit if any of you social workers out there are wanting to get CEU credit. The CEUs are only available to Ohio social workers, so I'm working to expand that. But if you're interested, I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check out that training. So in one of the slides of the training, I listed all of the positions that I worked in my social work career, and then someone reached out to me and they said, can you please share your journey? I'm going to do another part to this video. I'm going to talk about my clinical experience, what I do in my private practice every day. But what I wanted to do in this video is just to share the positions that I worked in from when I started in undergrad up until now, where I'm a full-time entrepreneur. And I shuffled through some of my old pictures, so I'll be sharing some photos too of the different positions that I worked in. So some of you may already know that I talk a lot about the opportunities that are available with a social work degree. There are a lot of different positions that we can do within the profession, and I created a document, 112 careers in social work. So I'll leave that in the description as well. And I want to thank you all in supporting me in that. And I'm glad that I've been able to shed some light on the various ways that you can use your social work degree, because I know there's nothing more frustrating than spending a lot of money on your degree and then feeling like it's not worth it or you can't make the amount of money that you want to make. But the reality is that list is just the tip of the iceberg. It doesn't even include everything that we can do with our social work degree. So it's just something to get you started. So if you want to check it out, again, it's 112 careers in social work. So on the slide, I included the positions that I worked in from the time I graduated from undergrad until now. And I literally had to kind of sit and think about what all I had done. And I was really impressed with myself, just how many skill sets that I've acquired over time, how I've been able to leverage those skill sets and build upon those skill sets. And then I've been able to transfer those skill sets into becoming an entrepreneur, which has really been exciting for me. And then now I'm in a position to where I can share everything that I've learned with you in the form of continuing education, this YouTube channel, and my podcast. And I'm hoping that you actually do find it valuable, because there wasn't any information out there like this when I started in my career, and I had a lot of questions. I had a lot of confusion around what I wanted to do. There was really no one guiding me in the decisions and choices that I made. So a lot of it was based off intuition, things that I felt that I wanted to do. It was maybe some discomfort that I was having in my life at the time. So those are the things that were driving my decisions. So now, with me being in the position that I'm in, I'm wanting to help you have more clarity around the decisions that you made, being intentional about the things that you want to do in your social work career, and then positioning yourself to be able to get there. When I was an undergrad, my first position was as an alternative school group facilitator. I worked with a group of students who had been put out of traditional school for various behavioral concerns, and they were being taught at an alternative school. And a part of that education, myself and my coworker would come in to facilitate groups with the students. I absolutely loved that position. It wasn't paid because at the time it was a part of my internship, but that is how I knew that I wanted to have a specialization in school social work. After I graduated, I came home and there were no school social work positions available in my area. So I went to a couple job fairs. I put some fillers out. I met and networked with some people within the field. And then I landed my first job at Children's Services as an ongoing caseworker. And in that position, I was around $35,000 or so. And I was pretty excited to come out of college at that pay rate, because my professor, which was the worst advice she could ever give me looking back on it, said that we should want to make our salary when we graduate from college. Quick correction. My professor told me that I should make my age, not my salary. Either way, it was still bad advice. And at the time, I was 22 years old. So from her math, I should have been making $22,000, which was totally lowballing my skill sets, but I didn't know any better. And that's what I'm talking about the advice that we tend to get. So $22,000 was absolutely not a lot of money for a bachelor's degree. So the ongoing caseworker position, that's the position that a lot of people who aren't familiar with social work that they're most familiar with, is us coming in, doing investigations, looking into suspicions of child abuse, neglect, or abandonment, and then making determinations on whether or not a child should be removed from the home. I came in after the determination was made that the child should be removed, and I worked with the family on their case plan to help get their children back. I absolutely hated the position. I didn't stay there very long, so when an available school-based position did come available, I applied for that. And I was working at a middle school as an after-school program coordinator, and I loved the position. I loved working with the students and coordinating the activities, but unfortunately, I made a very stupid decision in that position, and it caused me to get fired, and then I was out of a job altogether. But I was able to bounce back, and I had a coworker who knew of another position that was open. She referred me for the position, and I did a group interview at a local Head Start program. I was hired into the position, and I worked as a family support specialist for Head Start. And I made sure that the families had the resources and supports that they needed. I coordinated parent meetings to help them engage with their child's education and to make sure that they were helping their child transition into kindergarten. If any of you have ever worked for Head Start, you know that it's a seasonal position, so I had to apply for unemployment in the summer. So to supplement my income, I started working at a local Job Corps as a residential specialist. In there, I was responsible for just staying on dorm with the students who were enrolled in Job Corps, making sure that the dorm was clean, monitoring the halls, making sure that the students weren't drinking and smoking and things of that sort. So during that time, I was working 2 jobs. And because the seasonal thing really wasn't working out for me with the Head Start program, I started looking for other positions. And ironically, I was able to apply again for the job where I got terminated from. And that's normally not something that happens where you get hired back at a position where you were previously terminated, but years had passed. So I applied for another position where they were working in partnership with the local university. And I started a position as a neighborhood school center site coordinator, another school-based position. And I absolutely loved that position. I was responsible for being the link between the school and the community, making sure that the school was a community hub for resources and services for parents and community members. I was responsible for coordinating community events, our local book fair, coordinating with volunteers. It was a lot of work, but I also had university interns who would come in and support the work that I was doing. At that position, my salary was still about the same. It was still about $35,000 at the time. It wasn't a lot of money, but I was making it work. I knew that I wanted to transition into making more money. Some of my coworkers that I worked with at Head Start had said that there were a need for therapists to work with preschool age children who were having difficulty managing in the classroom. So that's when I started to pivot into doing more therapy type work. So I worked as a family-based therapist, and I used a model called functional family therapy. And then I also worked as a school-based therapist. In that school-based position, I would travel between multiple schools and meet with the students who were having behavioral concerns within the school setting. The demands and the productivity of that family-based therapy position was crazy, and I never wanted to do anything like that again where my hours were determined by productivity. I knew that was not the route that I wanted to take in terms of helping families. So I pivoted again, and then I started working as a legislative aide for the city in which I live. And during that time, because I worked as the school site coordinator, I had made some connections in the community with local universities, with political leaders, and people who had a vested interest in seeing the community school partnership succeed. I had also started volunteering for some political campaigns at the time, and that's how I was able to secure the legislative aide position. The legislative aide position was actually an entry-level position, so I took a pay cut when I went there, but I had a really good relationship with one of the politicians that I was working with. He wanted me to come on board as a part of his team, so I agreed. And because I was pretty much doing the position as a favor for him, it just wasn't financially feasible for me to continue in that position, so I started looking for other things. If any of you know about politics and political cycles, once the political season is over, it's very hard to find something else. You kind of have to jump on another campaign or transition into another type of legislative position. At one time, I was even considering being a politician because I was able to meet Senator Nina Turner, and she totally inspired me to want to go into politics. So there was a period of time when I wasn't working, And then I just did kind of odd jobs within the social work profession. So I worked as an administrator at a residential parenting home for teen moms. And then during this time, I had started my consulting company. So then I was doing some consulting with small nonprofits. I then worked as a foster care trainer at a local foster care agency. And you guys might know from some of my other videos, I talk about company culture. This was my first introduction into how different company culture can exist, because I was coming from a culture where everything that we communicated was through email. Because the staff were more spread out, it was just more convenient for us to communicate that way. But then I transitioned to a smaller agency where the cubicles were very close. You could walk down the hall to another person's office, and they really didn't communicate through email as much. So every time that I sent an email, they took that as me trying to create a paper trail. I was simply carrying on the culture that I was accustomed to from my other position, but because it didn't fit with the culture that I was currently in, it created an issue. And not only that, I used to show up late a lot, and because of that, I was terminated from that position. But looking back on it, I really don't think that my termination had anything to do with me being late. I think it played a part, but I don't think that was the main reason why I was let go. But as the foster care trainer, it was my responsibility to train the foster parents in the mandated hours that they're required to have by the state. So I would help create the trainings, and I would present that to the foster parents so that they were able to stay current on their training hours. After being terminated, I got back up. I kept applying for positions, and I secured a position as an alumni relations coordinator. I was working at a local university. I absolutely love this position too. I was responsible for coordinating alumni events in different states and bringing those groups together, and then also coordinating the homecoming from when the local alumni would come back to the college. I had some issues in that position, and I was fired from that position as well. And that was probably the highest paid position that I had. I was probably making about between $47,000 a year, but that helped me to be able to ask for more money in the other positions that I would have later on. I really enjoyed working in higher ed, and I also found that working in higher ed, you can make a lot more money. I was able to connect with my mentor who worked at another college, and then I was able to start in that position as an early college credit coordinator. What I did in that position is I worked with graduating high school seniors who were able to take college credit, and by the time they graduated from high school, they could have completed an entire semester of college. While I was working at the college, I always had a dream of wanting to be an adjunct professor, but when I was applying before, I could never get my foot in the door. So because I was making connections with the HR coordinator there, I applied to be an adjunct professor in the social work department, and that's how I began teaching. I was still making around $46,000 at the time. I was not good with managing and budgeting my money, so I took on another position. So I worked a part-time job as a medical social worker at a local hospital. There I worked at the psychiatric unit of people who came to the hospital who were admitted for suicidal ideation. And I was responsible for doing the discharge for those clients. I was responsible for facilitating the groups on the acute side and the chronic side from people who are suffering from severe mental illness, as well as suicidal ideation or suicidal attempts. By now, I acquired all of the hours that I needed to get my independent license, so I started doing therapy on the side as well. So I was working at the job as a medical social worker, I was working at the college, and then I was also doing individual therapy for a small nonprofit organization. And a part of that is I would consult and work with group homes. I would work with them on their individualized case plans, making sure that they were in compliance with the state. So with the medical social work position, I had to work every weekend. I didn't like the fact that I had to work every weekend, so I let that go. I wanted to transition out of higher ed because there were some issues with the college where they were talking about cutting departments, and I didn't know if my position was going to be one that was cut. Eventually, when I left the college, it eventually did get cut, or they shifted some things around. And I got back to working in a school. I was working at a school as a behavioral specialist for children who had been diagnosed with learning disabilities. Obviously, because I was transitioning from higher ed, I took a pay cut, but I did it intentionally because I wanted to see if I would be able to survive on a smaller salary as I transitioned into entrepreneurship. Also, during that time, I got into a really bad car accident. and I wasn't able to work at all. So it was actually an opportunity for me to be able to pivot from working traditional 9-to-5 jobs and then moving into entrepreneurship. So I took the time that I had off during my unemployment and I used that time to build my business. And while I was building my business, I was still working with local nonprofit organizations, doing therapy on the side, and still assisting group homes. I took a position as an adoption assessor, and once I had fully established my private practice, I wanted to specialize in trauma, so I took the EMDR courses, and now I'm a specialist in trauma and I do EMDR therapy with my clients. Because I do love teaching and I still love working in schools, I wanted to integrate that into the work that I do. So now, in addition to me running my practice, being an EMDR therapist, I'm able to provide CEUs to counselors, social workers, and helping professionals. So I'm still able to do the teaching that I enjoy. In addition to that, I'm still able to go into schools and provide individual therapy with schools that I'm contracted with or have an agreement with to offer services in the school setting. So that is my social work career. That was probably more than 20 because I had a little twos and fews here and there. But overall, you could just see the variety of things that you can do. Once you make connections with people, you're able to expand your opportunities. And it's not even always about the skill sets that you possess. Sometimes it's more about who you know than what you know. And you'll find that out as you begin to expand your network and connect with people. Don't be too close-minded about what you can do or how much you think you can make. Nobody really knows. You can get an idea of how much you can make based off of other people in that position, but it varies state by state. It varies by skill set, and you don't even have to stay in a traditional social work position. You can use the things that you enjoy in your creativity to build a business that you love. So be open to that possibility as well. So if you like this video, please like it, subscribe, and share it. Make sure you click the notification bell because I'm going to be uploading a part 2 to this video where I'm going to be talking about the steps that I took step by step to start into my clinical social work career. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, be well.